everyone, I'm Isabella.
And I'm Carmela, and welcome back to Tony's Unleashed.
So, today we have a very special guest for you.
Directly from Canada. So, Max, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, definitely. Thank you both for inviting me to the podcast. So, my name's Max. I'm a student from the University of Ottawa in Canada's capital, and I was lucky enough to spend 6 months at the University of Lausanne at the HEC, studying, traveling around Europe, and I spent quite a bit of time with Isabella and Carmela, as well as some other friends, as we took 2 classes together, and over the 6 months, we got the chance to get to know each other, work a lot together, and kind of also see the growth of this podcast. So I'm happy to be here and excited to talk with you both. And
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
No, so as Max said, so we met last semester when he was in Lausanne. And it was, I think that it's like both me and Camilla have also done an exchange, and I know how important it was for us and how much we learned from our exchange as well. And so I think that it is something that, you don't really have the chance a lot of times throughout your life to just disappear for 5 months and go and visit another country. And so I think it's really cool to take advantage of these opportunities that we have throughout maybe our university experience and like everything that we can learn and like get from like going on this exchange, for example.
Definitely, yes.
And Max, we know that you, for example, your parents are Italian, right? But you are born and raised in Canada. And like, how was it for you to come back to Europe? Like, I know you weren't exactly in Italy, but it was still like, it's still a close country to Italy. There may be some cultural similarities, or maybe it wasn't at all what you expected, or
yeah, no, it's an interesting question. And you talked a bit about like the whole aspect of just disappearing for 5-6 months.
Yeah.
And every time I'd gone to Europe with my parents, I was obviously kind of under their control, for lack of better words, right? Under their supervision. And so being able to escape for half a year in a place that I was kind of familiar with was interesting, because like I felt like I knew enough about European culture that I could get around no problem, knew how to communicate with locals. But there was still so much more to discover beyond just Italy. For starters, living in Switzerland, which I'd never been to before, that was really interesting. Completely different type of European like society than, I don't know, you could take Italy as an example, right? There are some similarities, but still a lot of things different.
No, but like, did you feel like you still kind of fit in, or was it like, did you have expectations for Switzerland, or did it not really, or did you just go with like an open mind, expecting it not to be exactly like Italy, for example?
Yeah. I knew it wasn't going to be totally the same as Italy, and I had some expectations just based on like research and like Swiss stereotypes, if you will. Like one of the things was, Swiss people really value being on time all the time. And that one was, it came up everywhere online. But then I actually got to campus, and like I would go to different events and people were late all the time. Like I could think of the different student societies I joined or the sports I was playing, and rarely was everybody there on time and things started on time. So like the expectations weren't, I won't say they weren't fully met, but that one was just one that I always kept thinking of on exchange. Overall, though, I went in with a pretty open mind, open to meeting whoever. I didn't really know what to expect beyond what I had read, so I was pleasantly surprised, and I would go back in a heartbeat. Switzerland is amazing, way more diverse than I thought it would be. People are a lot more open than I thought they would be. That was another thing online people said, like people are kind of cold and not open to small talk, which isn't true from my experiences. Maybe Lausanne is unique because it's like kind of more of a student city with 3 universities. But yeah, overall net positive experience, 100%.
Yeah. So it wasn't like an insane culture shock for you. It was still pretty like you integrated yourself pretty well. I mean, like I know that you did, but
I like to think that I did.
I mean, that's what I think as well. But I mean, I don't know, maybe inside you felt differently, but it seemed like you managed really well too.
Yeah, no, I think there was no issue with integration. Also, because I did meet some other Canadians, so I was able to relate with them if there was maybe any sort of uncomfortable adjustment I had. And then I also had family not too far. Like I had a Zia that was living in Milano, so I went to see her a few times. So it was like I had a support system in case there was any issues. But
no,
okay,
definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, so you come from a bilingual country, because Canada, it's also like French and English speakers live there. And as you know, like Switzerland is a polylingual country, and Lausanne is mainly French. So did you like use your French skills a lot? Do you think it was necessary to speak French?
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people in Canada, like when I got back, asked me the same thing. And I didn't realize how proficient everyone is in English. I went in thinking that like everyone just only speaks French, and there's a few that speak English. But so in like public, I didn't use my French as much as I thought I would. Small talk French was fine, but bigger conversations, I felt like people wanted to practice their English more. So I found myself using it. And then, as you know, some of our classes were like instructed in French. So I was consuming a lot more French content than I'm used to academically, which was a bit of an adjustment. But like, yeah, I'd say that was a bit of a adjustment French wise. And then also the slang you guys use in your French is so different than in Canada, especially because like the Canadians I met were all from Quebec, all spoke Quebecois. And so I would listen to that
which is
like when I would hang out with them. So different, right?
It's very different.
A class with Max and all of his Canadian exchange friends, and I would hear them in the back of the classroom, and I was like, I understood what they were saying, but your guys' slang as well is different from our slang. Yeah. And so for me as well, there were some things I was just like, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
you know?
Is this we're talking about market design?
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny because I didn't meet any of the Canadians until like I think week 3 or 4. And I also heard them in the back of the class. I was like, hey, these guys are from Canada. Like, I need to meet these people. It sticks out like a sore thumb. But
But was that weird for you to, because I know that when I moved to Lausanne and I took a big uni class in French for the first time, it still had its impact. And was that scary for you as well in the beginning to know that like you're going to have like maybe a 6-credit course fully in French and maybe a French that you're not entirely used to, because living in Canada, still the Quebecois is still pronounced slightly different, you know, like.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's more the second part, like adjusting to the different kind of French. Because with my bachelor in Canada, I'm still taking 40% of my classes instructed in French.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But it was just the smaller things, like in the lecture, listening to the professor. I can think of like gestion de projet, our professor, she spoke so quickly. Her French was hard to understand. So I found myself going to the notes a lot more or asking for help from some of the classmates. So there was some adjustment, but I feel like I had enough help around me or resources to still figure it out and not be too overwhelmed. Right.
True.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not one of the most international schools in Switzerland, but I think it's pretty international. I mean, as you said, you can easily find people who just speak English like on a daily basis. I mean, as Isabella and I, for example.
Yeah, a lot of diversity. Even I could just think of like the cafeteria in Internet. Like I heard multiple different languages, even beyond just the typical Swiss languages.
Yeah.
Were you expecting because I know that you knew that you were moving to the French part of Switzerland. Were you also, I mean, you did a group project with me and Carmela. Me and Carmela speak Italian to each other. Were you expecting to hear Italian as well and like have that sort of integrated into your life again, even if you were not in Italy, not by your parents? Like,
yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting to meet Italian people, or like, I know you guys technically aren't Italian, you're like Swiss from the Italian part, but it was a nice surprise, I guess. And that's also kind of what pushed me to take the Italian class I took in Lausanne. Mm-hmm. Definitely felt more connected to like my culture. So that it was
that's
nice.
Good. Yeah.
Nice addition to the exchange. Yeah.
And like in general, just speaking on like a university level, how was adapting to university? Was it hard for you? Like I know you said that you maybe had some expectations on a cultural level because it's easy to just Google, but I think it's harder to have expectations on a uni level aside from maybe a university's reputation, but there's not much more that you can really expect, I think, you know?
Yeah, I get you just wondering like what what my thoughts were on like what I thought going into school versus what actually the level was.
Yeah, maybe. Or just like how you lived the whole experience in general, like comparing Canada to Switzerland.
Like also comparing the uni lives, like the campus or more on a university side.
I'll start with like campus life and then maybe talk about academics. I feel like campus life in North America, more so in the US and Canada, but there's more of a focus on like student societies and spending more time on campus, living your life on campus. At least comparing my university to like University of Lausanne, our campus is a lot closer, each building. So it's really easy to go to the different faculties, go visit friends in other buildings, attend different student club events all over campus. Like you can walk from one end to the other within 10 minutes. Whereas I feel like with UNIL, that's not the case. Like you have Geopolis on one side and then Amphimax is on the, like that's a far walk. You know what I mean? 4 subway stops spread across the whole university. And I feel like that makes it hard to have a similar campus life. But then students also are still hanging out just off campus. So that was one thing I noticed. Campus life isn't the same. Buildings close a lot earlier too on the Swiss campus. Like everything was shut down by like 8, 9 o'clock. Whereas here you can stay in the library 24/7. Some of the buildings are open till like midnight. So that was a bit of an adjustment too, because I spend a lot of time on campus. And so now hanging out in my dorm, that was a bit strange at first, but got used to it. Academically, Switzerland was way more difficult than I expected, especially comparing it to other people's experiences, like that came back from exchange from different places. I know some people who were in South America and they like barely went to class. They were able to do everything virtually, travel all around. Their experience was more traveling than school, whereas I felt mine was more of an equal balance between traveling and doing school. Like I still got around, but in my mind, I thought, okay, exchange, I'm just going to pass all my classes and it'll be free reign traveling all over. That wasn't exactly the case. Which is fine. I mean, I'm just going to take the experience and, take it for what it was. I still enjoyed all the classes I took and the people I met in the classes were great. The content was interesting. So yeah, Swiss school, I think as a whole though, different and it's slightly harder than Canadian school. And that's because of, I think, 2 things. The group aspect in Switzerland, like the emphasis on group work is kind of crazy. And then the second part is also just like the structure of the classes, like the economics course we took, Isa, 2 midterms, and that was it. You don't really see that often here. There's more like deliverables sprinkled in.
No, definitely. I think that it's funny to hear you say group work because I know that for me and Carmela, like group work was non-existent until our 3rd year, practically.
Yeah.
So like, so I think, unfortunately you came when kind of everybody was discovering group work. And so it probably was just like a lot as well for that reason, because I mean, at least personally, it wasn't something that I was super, super used to at a uni level.
No, I think it's not very common like during all our bachelor in Lausanne. So yeah, it was like kind of the first time for everybody, and that's why usually it was a mess.
But
we definitely went into our own speed bumps with group work.
Yeah, but it was all worth it in the end. So.
It was.
Yeah. But I think I mean, as you experience, it's the best way to meet like locals. Group work helps to integrate with like all the other students and not just the student life among like only exchange students,
I have to say that you were one of the few exchange people I met this semester, actually. I mean, I've talked to others and I think you were the only one I really got to know. And so did your friends also get to know like people who were full-time students there, or was it or did you feel like you were one of the few people that also got to know like Carmela said, like local students?
Yeah. From the other exchange students I met and like know pretty well, I don't think they were as integrated to like the domestic UNIL students or like the ones who were enrolled full time. So I can't speak on their experiences, but I definitely feel like I took more of like a leap of faith choosing to join a non-exchange or non-Canadian student group. And I'm glad it worked out. Like when I took a recherche and I saw I was like I didn't recognize any exchange faces in that class on that first day. And I guess for the listeners, if they probably don't know the story, but I met them because I just put out like a message on Moodle and I was like, this is who I am. I need a group. And then Isabella emailed me and that's kind of how it happened. So I don't think many exchange students took the risk to hang out with like the Swiss students because of the idea of like, okay, I'm on exchange, I'm gonna just travel and have fun and not be responsible for school.
Yeah.
But I also think it's easier. Like for me, at least when I was on my exchange, it was also because all the exchange like events were, you know, like everybody you kind of knew always went to the same events as well. Not that we didn't have events in common, but it was, you know, you kept on seeing the same faces over and over again. And so in that sense, it was also just like, it was easier from a point of view that you just like, you know, you come to a new place, you want to get to know people. When you see a person 10 times, it's like, it's easier to integrate directly.
Totally. Yeah. There were some Swiss students that hung, like all the people who organized the ESN events, like they were great at kind of helping people understand some of the local life. Like they gave great tips on like on the welcome week on like, okay, the do's and don'ts of HSC or UNIL or the PFL, whatever. So I think that definitely helped out a lot of students. And I know some people who became friends with the ESM people, like exchange students who became friends. So
yeah,
some of that happened, some integration. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that you had to get used to like being maybe a few less hours on campus and like going back to your dorm. But like, how was readapting your routine for you? I mean, me and Cameron have spoken about this. Like when we were on exchange, we had no routine kind of. It was everything was last minute, and it kind of it's like a whole new experience. For those like 5-6 months that you're gone, everything is just new. And I mean, just being in a different country and probably not having the same food options or the same like exact sports activities or whatever, probably like inflated, or that's not an English word, probably influenced your routine a little. And like, how did that feel for you? Was that was that a positive or a negative experience?
I think it was a positive experience. Like before the exchange, I was very much a creature of habit. Like I was stuck in my routines and like I needed things to be certain ways. Being on exchange, I was forced to kind of get out of that because, well, I was kind of picking up the pieces of getting used to life as I was going throughout the exchange. I would say like the last 2 months, I felt the most in a routine, if you will, partially because I wasn't traveling as much. So I didn't have like that interjected into my, you know, like random week where I'm just gone for 3 days. And I was just getting, like I said, getting used to a bit of a routine, like, you know, studying in the same places, taking the same route to campus, getting up and going back at the same time. But then I left it right after 2 months, and I was kind of back in Niagara. I wasn't even in Ottawa. I was living with my parents. So then I had to kind of adjust to that for another 6 weeks. And then I kind of got used to it after 2-3 weeks, and then back to Ottawa. So I feel like in the past year, it's been a lot more.
I really relate to like everything.
Yeah,
you know, like it's like
absolutely.
a universal exchange experience.
But I'm happy I'm living that now, like being comfortable with the uncertainty of not having a routine.
You kind of get used to it. And of course, like going on exchange, it helps a lot because you have to adapt a new city, you have to adapt a new rhythm, new friends, new environment, like at school, at home. I mean, you were in a dorm, you said. So was it your first time in a dorm? I mean, do you usually live in an apartment?
Yeah, my first year at the U Ottawa, I was in a dorm, like a student style dorm, quite similar to the one I was in Lausanne. But then after my first year, I just lived in apartments, like with friends on a flat, in a flat. Yeah.
Were a lot of your exchange friends living in the same like building as you in Lausanne, or was that also?
No. I knew one other person who lived in the building, but I didn't really see them within the building. Like I would run into them when we're out. I don't know, at a bar or at another person's house. Sorry.
Yeah. And I know you said that maybe uni was a little bit harder than you expected. And I understand that. I mean, Swiss schools are no joke. So the pressure they put on you as well. But did you still feel like you got to live Lausanne a little bit? Like, do you feel like you got to know the city kind of and like experienced a lot still within like the city of Lausanne? Or was your goal mostly to like in your free time then travel Switzerland?
Yeah, I got to experience the city, I think, especially towards the end. I was balancing a lot of exam studying with running and doing different sports. I ran around Lausanne quite a bit, so I got to see the different parts.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with anything that's like at like Ripon or Flon. Really nice. and I really enjoyed it. I do wish I traveled around Switzerland a bit more, though. I only got to see Bern, Geneva, and that's about it. Like, I wish I didn't get to see Zurich or Basel, and I kind of regret not going.
Okay. Yeah.
So you said your cultural shock was not so big. It was more shocking, like the university rhythm. And so, but you had the chance and you managed to adapt to like a new life in a new city. And you mentioned that you take the opportunity to learn how to live not without a routine, so that now you're getting always better at it. And what are your main like takeaways from your exchange? What did this experience leave to you?
Yeah, I think there's two main things that I always think of, and the first one it's got to be like being okay working in groups, and like working with people from diverse backgrounds and diverse perspectives. That was a big one. I used to not be a fan of group work, and after Lausanne, I'm way more open to it and feel more comfortable like dealing with the complexities of group work and how there might be some awkward moments and, you know, having hard conversations. And then the other one, which we already talked about, was just like being okay with uncertainty in life, like not knowing if you're gonna, not really knowing what your next week looks like, or not even thinking about it, just kind of taking it week by week, being comfortable with that short-term mindset when you're adjusting to new things. So I think those are the two big ones.
I think it's really interesting how just being able to immerse yourself in like different cultures, like not only did you come to Switzerland, but like you also got to experience, like you said, for example, group work with people who don't think like you, or like haven't grown up with the same like academic system, and the way that that can like even just give you like a few hints for the future and like how to, I don't know, like even I think when we will go on to work in the future, I think we will find ourselves probably in some sort of international environment. There will be people that come from other countries that have other ideas as well. And I think that it's a good lesson to like have for the future, to understand that there's so many different ways of thinking, like based on your background as well.
Yeah.
Which can simply be your academic background.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Actually, in August, I was interviewing for a internship for this coming summer, like 25. And one of the people who interviewed me was Italian. And he moved from Calabria to Canada for school, whatever, got the job. But him and I, like in one of the interviews, we talked a lot about Switzerland and exactly this, like working with diverse perspectives. And because his team, he was telling me like they have people that are bilingual, but in all sorts of languages, like Spanish, English, Mandarin, English, right? And so he's used to that international environment. And I feel like me being able to tell him about our group work, or even like the work I did with the investment fund, because I also worked with people from different countries there, that was huge and really helped me do well in that interview. Yeah, people do value that in the end, right?
Yeah, no, and it's definitely, it's a skill that you learn in the end, you know, also just simply adapting to uncertainty, you know, like it's something that we need to learn sooner or later in our life.
Yeah.
And I think that it is, you know, and like it can happen in more than one aspect, but I think that it is really important. And I think that kind of like, for me at least, the exchange was sort of 5 months where you learned so many of these different things kind of in one go. And you came back with like a lot of different.
Definitely. Yeah, that's why I think that going on exchange makes you grow so fast. It's a lot of new insight, new information, new, like, I don't know, new skills that you just learn, all like condensed in like a block of like 5-6 months.
Yeah,
totally.
One final question for you is, do you have any future plans for like Switzerland or Europe, or I mean, maybe going back to Italy since you have family there?
Yeah. On Thursday night, I booked a 1-week trip to Amsterdam.
Okay.
In February. I have a cousin who's going on exchange, not in Amsterdam, but an hour outside, kind of on the German border, German and Dutch border. So I'm going to visit her for a bit, and then I hope to also see a bit of Belgium and then Amsterdam as well. So
that's fun.
So yeah, I'll be back on the continent. And then Swiss and Italy, to answer that, like I'll definitely be back at some point. I go to Italy pretty often to visit family. So,
of course.
But when I'm back in Lausanne or Zurich or anywhere in Switzerland, no question, I'll be messaging you guys to see if we can figure something out. Yeah.
Yes.
No, but thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. And I mean, a lot of what you said is what I lived as well. And so, like, I think that there are certain things that you just in general learn. And I think for me, it was a good experience overall. And I hope that it was for you as well. And that you could grow as a person after this.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me. And like, even thanks for dealing with me for the 6 months I was in Switzerland. I was going through a lot of things and figuring it out, as you know. And you guys were awesome to relate to with like the things that I was feeling on exchange. And it's super cool to be able to do this kind of like retrospective with you both and look back on it. So yeah.
No, definitely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Really.
So we hope that you guys like this episode.
And see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.